Hello, I'm Denise DeBold and I'm with Stage Right Productions. We are the resident production company here at the historical Crighton Theater in downtown Conroe, Texas. And obviously we are doing Mary Poppins. This stove was created and designed right here. We are all volunteers and I call him my master volunteer, Dave Hackman. He helped create my stove for me. And as you can see, it looks like the tea kettle is boiling, which is the whole key to the magic of what happens in the kitchen when Robertson Eye touches the hot water. So we have inside, we actually have the dry ice, which gives it that steaming look. But what is making that flicker under the teapot? Let's swing it around to the back. And as you can see, first off, there is a hole in the actual fly, and this fly also was built right here at the theater. And behind this, we have an opening that someone is actually interacting, and what you're going to see is a little mini shelf holding just a battery-operated torch. And it was a matter of just turning it on right before the blackout goes to lights, and right away you have your flame. Now, another part of what we do is we actually, behind the scene, when everything is starting to get trashed, right after it hits the teapot, the oven is going to pop open, and I'm going to have my camera guy move to the front. Oven's going to pop open, and what you see is the smoke and the lighting from our geyser that's underneath. We hold it for a few seconds, let it go, and the stove stays open. Now during part of the scene where she actually puts the kitchen back together, on the cue of spit spot, there is a rope string, which at this moment was broken, and it's pulled closed. And then they also turn off the flame because all of that is now done. This was a lot more complicated in the respect that it really was simple, but figuring out the logic to make it work was not simple, especially when you're very tired. So, some of the key aspects to this, there was a lot of conversation about making a track for every single plate, and that sounded complicated to me. I wanted to keep it simple, the good old keep it simple syndrome. So, one of the first pieces we did is the two shelves are hinged. Right here, there is a hinge, just a regular small little hinge. One is on one side, so one shelf will go one direction, and then there's another on the opposite side to make that shelf drop in opposite direction. You can also see down below, there's a pin that is holding the opposite end of these shelves. That is obviously what's holding everything in place. One additional key factor was this little string right here. Pretty much invisible to the eye out in the audience. Actually, it's the speeding motorcycle syndrome. 30 feet away, you can't see on a speeding motorcycle, you won't see it. The concept for that string was solve one problem of the plates slipping off or flipping forward off of the shelf. You'll also see that there's two tiny little holes in each one. Each of those has fishing line tied to it that goes through one hole on the back of the actual box that's built into the fly, and we'll show you that in a moment. A couple other problems we had was you have to control the speed in which the shelf itself falls. So there's a counterweight back there, which we will go to and I'll address when we go to the back. Additionally, these plates have absolutely no weight associated with them. So one problem you have is that they just don't want to move. But you also have to make sure you've got them overlapped so they will move the way you want them to move. A lot of confusion, it seems like. But a washer is directly behind here, just taped to the plate at the top, so that once the momentum is created by the shelf, it keeps that plate rolling. Now another key is getting those plates to stop where you want them to. Now most scenes I've seen, this plates all stacked right at the bottom and then they kind of pull back up. Well, I'm such a visual person, I had a problem with them kind of all just disappearing in one stack, so I wanted them to kind of nice and neat fall at the bottom. So one of the things I did was preset them by taping them into position. Then I mark them with a marker in the back, or a stopper, let's say, to keep them from going any further than they should, or than I wanted them to. So that's kind of the overall gist of this. Now let's move to the back and get a visual of what it looks like. It's like a little spider web back here. It's really quite simple as far as what was done. This first stack, and we've got them taped because these are on a fly, so we've got to try to secure them as best as possible. So what we've done here is this first section here, this upper section, that is this first shelf here. And the other section that you see here are the 4 strings for the plates that are controlled by this plug that is holding the shelf. Now I talked about counterweights, and this is our counterweight. We just kept putting little clips, find what works best for you. But well, again, we had this taped in so that we don't have any of that movement when the fly is going up and down. So this is 1 counterweight for 1 shelf. Obviously, these items need to be untaped before you're ready to move anything that's going to happen with the shelves, and make sure the tape was out of the way so it doesn't catch. So there's our other counterweight. And all that we do, and I'm going to go out there and show this to you after we let them go. On the cue, the actual actor of Robinson Eye actually comes around and kind of hits the fly, because we cannot see where he is, and in many cases cannot hear where he is. So he actually physically comes by, hits the wall, and we have, there's actually 4 of us, you can do it with 2. But we actually have, the first action is to just, we're going to go ahead and just pull those. And some of these strings have stretched, so the stoppers aren't actually going to the physical hole, but let's go around and see how did it actually fall together. Let's take a look. In most cases, they all kind of go into place, and as you can see in this case, that looks okay because, one, that shelf got caught because it was by the compression of the shelf above, and that's okay. All these strings that you see, that all disappears out in the audience. But the key here is, notice how they stopped, that they're overlapped, that they're not all piled up in one area. Yes, they moved. They don't have to totally go off. Now you can see this kind of popped out of the way. But when we go pull this back up with the string that is using the counterweight, it's going to be fine. One other thing I missed that I did not mention is we had problems with the plates falling behind the shelf. So we had to put a 1x1 in the front. I believe it's a 1x1. It might even be smaller. The guys just split a couple of pieces for me. And there's one behind it, because this particular one is the one that keeps these from falling behind the shelf, which was another issue. Needless to say, it took about 4 to 5 hours just to get one shelf to work. But hopefully this will help you make yours happen a little easier. So when I go back around, you can see here's the hole where the plug is. And there's the other hole up at the top where the plug is. And you can see how this string is kind of holding these plates from popping forward in any way. So I'm going to go back to the back, behind again, and I'm going to pull all these up, pull them all into position. And as you can see, they pretty much went back into place. There's one that's kind of hung up, but I had to pull it by myself. So you can see they actually all go right back into place. When there's more than one person back there, they do fly right back into place. Occasionally you will have a plate and it looks like we broke a string there. I'll have to fix it. One thing to remember is after or before you do your next show, you always want to recheck this. The more you pull it, the more it goes out of alignment as far as the plates are concerned. And again, you can see you might have a breakage or something. So it's always a good idea to recheck, just like anything else, check your props before your show. And this is just a bigger prop. One of the other magics in the kitchen is they come in with a cake. So here's my cake, which really kind of looks like a chiffon cake. And all it is just a little bit of memory foam, just glued to the actual tray so that it doesn't move. Mary then reaches underneath and she then picks up a lid, and preferably she's keeping it towards her, puts it on, and then the cake becomes magically iced. And it's as simple as, I have 2 lids. One was painted to make it look like an iced cake, and the other is just another lid with a screwed on handle. The key to this is I thought that I would need magnets to release and let this drop onto the other cake. But because of the flowers that are on here, it creates just enough drag that if the actor is, and we instruct them how to try to use it, so if the actor is just grabbing it from underneath, keeps it forward, this part forward, because if they go this way, they're going to reveal. But if they go this way and then put it down, drop it on, it is as simple as that. And they magically, that's the last moment in that scene of putting the kitchen back together. So let's look at how this magical table works. And this is really a must, in my opinion, that it automatically come up and then it looks natural. I've seen many that have folded in the middle, and personally I did not like that look. It looked more like you had an earthquake or something and it just kind of broke in half. I didn't like that. Now obviously you've got to make sure everything is cleared off of the table, and there are moments that you can control that. For us, all that was needed, and our master carpenter was really awesome about creating this. This table is also used in SuperCal, just as so we don't have to have two tables that function the same way. So when it's used as SuperCal, these legs are locked in these two pieces of wood. That's what keeps them locked in place. Now right now I don't have the bungees all set because we release the bungees until the next weekend so that they do not lose their strength. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to set it. We actually just do this right before it's brought on. It gets set to here and set behind this piece as well. Now, because right now there are no bungees, what you're going to see, notice how this automatically starts to drop. That's what happens. Robinson Eye falls on top of it. Now, because there's tension there, he has to remain slightly positioned on top of that until Mary Poppins brings him back to life. And the moment he does, because of the bungees, and we can come around the back and kind of see where those bungees are. These bungees, there's multiple. They actually go in the front there, in between the leg and the front. They travel underneath the piece of wood here, and then it comes down and is all latched in this area here. It's total genius as far as our builder is concerned. It's exactly what I described, what I needed as far as the front legs collapsing to the back. It was exactly what we wanted. And to me, this was like the pièce de résistance because this was a must. So the moment that he gets off of it, it automatically pops right back up really quick. And actually, just like what it did here, in many cases, the leg will pop right back into the locked position because it comes up so quick. It seems very simple, but there was a lot of research done. We'd seen many videos, but no one revealed their secret. So what we have here is one of the other last little pieces of magic, and I'm going to show you a little prop that was created, which is kind of my own thing, but this is the magic of, and you can kind of see what I've got going on here, this is the magical picture that Bert pulls the flowers out and presents them to Mary before she leaves. Now, and all that he does is there is an opening right here, and I'm going to show you how this was done. You should be able to figure it out, but I saw someone on a YouTube, but they didn't reveal either. So it's just a matter of him pulling it out, and you do want to try to have those flowers hot glued on because it keeps them from all popping off. But each night you have to preset that so it's positioned in there properly. So what this is, obviously it's a picture frame, it's a painting type canvas. And I used the back side of that canvas. I cut a piece of plexiglass to cover that. Before I did so, I also cut an opening here, obviously. Here's the canvas front of the canvas, so that I would have room to put the flowers in. Nailed it because hot glue, none of that's going to hold. You need to nail it. And then I just created a quick painting over the top of it. And again, it's just purely for effect. It doesn't have to be professional. Find something that works for you. Now the key here too was you got to get rid of that shine right here. So all that was used there was some Mod Podge to cover that up. And by the way, Mod Podge is perfect for covering mirrors, because if you try the hairspray trick, you're going to do a lot of coats, and for some reason it just doesn't quite do it. But Mod Podge works, and then you can just scrape it off if you want to reuse that mirror again for something else. So this was that simple as far as the magic picture that Bert uses to give flowers to Mary. So this isn't really necessarily any Mary Poppins magic, but it was my little magic to create flying kites for the Let's Fly a Kite scene, because I really didn't want to just have one kite flying, and we have a lot of kids in the show, and there's a lot of dancers. And so all that it is we purchased some kites that we're using for promo sales during Mary Poppins, and I just spray painted them. These are made out of a nice, really durable vinyl, and I was able to spray paint them so they're all multiple different colors. And then purchased wire that was durable enough, easy enough to bend, but durable enough that it would hold up during the show. And bending it to fit up underneath the kite itself, taping it. The ladies, some of our helpers, strung all the ribbons on them to make them colorful. And then all that it is on the bottom is there was a hole put through the dowel rod, and then the wire is bent through it for stability. Tape over it, again, speeding motorcycle syndrome, paint it white, and then the brown. And from a distance, it looks like they're holding a kite with a lot of string on it. The dancers actually dance with them, and then they turn them over to the children. So it creates a nice effect. We have 7 of them on stage at a time, and it really is pretty impressive to get to see some of that happening on stage. So here's some of the other magic that happens. We pull down our fly for our bedroom. We don't have the beds out, we don't have the dollhouse out, but I just wanted you to see kind of how the dresser works. Some things I consider that are forgivable in theater is, I would rather these not be as visual as they are, but they are what they are. You're creating, for the kids, it's magic. For the adults, they have expectations and certain things are going to happen, but for the kids, they're sitting there with their mouths open, as they say, like a codfish. So for this scene, Mary brings her bag to the front. Originally, we wanted some things to happen differently, but we just did not have the time to make it all come physically out of her bag. But there are ways that you can make it visually happen. Now, in this theater, we do have a balcony. So we also have to be cognizant of how visual is what we're trying to create to the balcony. And from what I've understood so far, no one has actually seen the door that is behind her bag actually open. So we have a little trap door here that is built into this open dresser, which later the doll Valentine comes out of. So it's, again, a dual function on how it works. So her bag is here, and she is usually working over and acting like, now maybe some angles might look a little different, but the first thing that's going to come out of here, and let me show you how it works. The first thing, again, we have a hole in the actual physical fly that a crew member is behind the scenes pulling the items through. And what we have is we've got this is here specifically for the Valentine scene because our sky drop that is behind this fly would be fully exposed if this was not backed up with a black curtain for that particular scene. So it still just looks vacant. So we have only 2 items are preloaded in the actual dresser. The rest are in her bag with the exception of the first item that comes out, which is the hat rack. And all that we did was just put a couple of little locks here. They're really just like a little door lock that helps to hold this into place. And the crew member, when they come out with this, they get it pre-pulled so that all they have to do is drop, put something through, hold it back up again, because you don't want this to stay exposed the entire time that somebody else is, while the acting is going on. So that's what gets created. So what we're going to do is, the first item that actually gets fished through here, and let me just turn it again so we can kind of come to the front. The first item, obviously, is the hat rack. Now, we actually are using a full-size hat rack, and in our case, right now I'm trying to get it through the fly, but in our case, she's right in front of this, she's pulling it out, she's taking it up, and we cut it down so it can go through the openings really quickly. She takes it over beyond the bed and sets it up and puts her hat, coat, and so forth on while she's still active. Now, the next item I believe that comes out of here, and I meant to have them in a certain order, but as the items are coming out, here comes the plant. The plant is fed through, it fishes up, it comes over, it sets here. One of the other items that comes out is fed through to her. Again, the magic is from the front. And again, here's that Mod Podge effect on the mirror. She sets it here and we tell her to make sure she angles it so it's not directly at the audience giving any kind of glare. And then other items are preloaded in her bag, such as the telescope. And she also has her tape measure. And she has her apron. She also has what we thought was, which I saw in one of the shows, where it was an actual cup of tea, and she sits on the bed and has her spot of tea. So that's the process of how this works. And then it all just gets, every time it comes back on, all of these items are set in the same exact position so that it creates that same visual each time that scene is replicated. And that's some of the magic in Mary Poppins' bag. So one last piece that this was utilized for is in the dream scene where the children are put to sleep by Mary Poppins and the dolls come alive. Now Valentine's doll was thrown inside and he then comes alive. We also have the beds, which you probably will have seen in some of the prior clip. But the beds, the stuffed animals come out of the bed. But for this scene, I end up pulling down the black cloth. Again, because we have a hole in our backdrop back here in our fly, and our backdrop to that is a sky, we need to make sure that that gets blacked out so that when Valentine comes out of the front of this, all that we see, and Mary actually opens it up, and it's just a matter of pulling it up. Out he rolls, and then it closes again. So it's all just a fake facade. There's magnets on the bottom to keep this from bouncing when it's moving on and off of stage, because we do have a limitation of a ramp that we take these items down. And again, as I said before, I would love these to not show, but there's some of the magic you just can't make go away. And for the kids, we had one, actually it was our master carpenter, his niece was here and she was 8. And she was in awe of all of it. So we have to remember to see some of these things through the eyes of the children. There's magic in the theater, and the theater is magic. And that's what we try to create here and have created through what we've done with Mary Poppins. I hope you enjoy.